Hare Krishna. Session mic for reading. Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtham Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam. Can you bring that digital book that I have, that book on kids that I'm reading to my room?
Some on your desk?
Yeah, blue. Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadhvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalitha Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we are reading from chapter 13, Eskimo Self-Sufficiency, Rome, May 28, 1974.
Page 116 in the PDF. Page 10 on the page.
Eskimo self-sufficiency. Live locally and be self-sufficient. Travel should be for pleasure and not required for one's livelihood. Set the example of how to live simply and be ideal. Dhananjaya. In Greenland, Prabhupada, others cannot live locally. Satsarup. That's not their karma? Prabhupada. No, karma is there. That is another point. My point is that in any condition one can live locally. That is my point. They're supposed to be uncivilized and they live in the ice cottage. There's no sufficient things for eating. And how they live, that is the point. So why civilized man cannot live locally? Satsarup. One objection to that is that they say that now cultures have been spread more by all this transportation. You even write that the world is now like a global village. But if everyone just stays in their own place, they won't know what people and culture is like in other parts of the world, and their view will be more narrow. Prabhupada. No, they may go sometimes. Just like in India, they used to live locally. But at the same time, they used to go to the pilgrimages by walking. It is not prohibited that one should not go out, but when one goes out, he goes out of pleasure, not as obligation. At the present moment, it has become an obligation that one must go out of his home, of his village, of his country. That is defective. There was no need of so many transports. People remained locally. One has to go for livelihood 100 miles. This is defective. Dhananjaya. But people say they travel for education. Prabhupada. What education? Hippies? Your education has ended into hippies. Finish that education, nonsense education. You have created this animal civilization. Now they are coming out as naked animals. This is the result. Now you have to reform them. That reformation is Krishna consciousness. So you have to make an example, what is actually human life. Then others will see. You cannot stop them. But some of them, those who are intelligent, they will see, yes, here is life. As they are coming to nakedness, they will come to this, our mode of life. So you have to become an ideal society. You live locally and be self-sufficient. They will see that it is possible to live locally without movement and still highly cultured men self-sufficient. That is required.
This thing about live locally, actually, I also heard this argument growing up that because of modern transportation, because of technology and this and that, we now know about other people and other cultures, and our view is more broad. Actually, it's only caused more conflict, because the thing is, people are not used. The Western world is going through an experiment, a social experiment, where they've been trying to have a melting pot of all different cultures, but there's heavy backlash for this now. Practically everywhere. As we are speaking right now, there's heavy protests in Britain against the Muslim immigration in their country, because they don't want. The expectation is that the foreigners will come and they will assimilate into the culture, but that's not the case. The foreigners come, they come with their own culture. And then they try to form pockets of this culture, and then eventually the local people start to feel alienated, or start to feel like, oh, well, this is our land, and why are they bringing all this in? And now, as Srila Prabhupada is saying, that they may go sometimes. Even in the past, there was trade. People had some idea. There were travelers who would go around describing the different cultures and this and that. But overall, to some degree, homogeneity of culture is actually beneficial. It's actually nice, because people don't want other cultures and ideas. Now, that can, in one sense, others cannot, well, because now it's like a global village, we're able to preach Krishna consciousness. Yes and no. I mean, Christianity spread throughout the world without the aid of these kind of things. And if you think about it, for Christianity, for instance, to be accepted in places as far off as South Korea, where the people are really Christian, South Korean culture has nothing to do with Abrahamic, European, Middle Eastern culture. Completely different. And it was before the age of technology and airplane travel and all this kind of thing. So people accepted. Things did change. So it's not true that modern civilization is required for spreading Krishna consciousness. And in fact, if there's not so much mixing of culture, it does create a certain level of peace. And the thing is, now, because of transportation, they're having to artificially do it through immigration laws. Previously, you didn't have immigration laws because you didn't need it, because people wouldn't travel so much. It was just harder to do it. And there would be a few people who would come, and those people are in one sense worth it, because they take the trouble, they take all that difficulty to come, and it's not very easy to come. It's not very easy to travel like that. And so there was no immigration. In the past, you could move from country to country without any problem, whether that was all over the world. Some things about self-sufficiency that I found interesting in this book that I'm reading, which was recommended to us. How digital technology affects our children and disconnects us from reality and from each other. So there's a few things that I found quite interesting. They begin the book by saying, which is what Prabhupada is saying, that many of wait, where's this? Yeah. Our specialized economy now has everyone in occupations which provide monetary income that everyone then uses to go out and buy everything they need. This is the modern society. This is a phenomenal shift from prior generations where people made or grew most of what they needed, thereby directly participating in providing the essentials of life for themselves. This is some karmi guy who's writing this, because this is how society lived. Now the norm is, and they've really hardwired this into our brains, that you need to go and do an occupation that gives you monetary income. And then with that money, you go buy what you want. But previously, people didn't depend, like they did have gold for exchange, but it wasn't used for everything. It was, most of the things you grew for yourself. You did everything yourself. So, Our modern way of life, with its emphasis on individualism, material success, efficiency, specialization, industrialization, technological innovation, and so forth, has radically altered traditional social and environmental patterns of life and severed what were hitherto close human relationships with nature, with the land, and with each other. So, and then he says that one aspect of this fragmentation is how the young in our society have become increasingly disconnected from the natural world, a separation that has significant environmental, social, psychological, and spiritual implications. It's there. It's when we become disconnected from the land. And some things that he's saying, which is quite amazing. This is from a study that he quotes. Many behavioral problems now appearing among the young, problems often branded as mental disorders, research has shown that directly exposing youngsters to nature can be effective in reversing a range of what are commonly known as attention deficit disorders and other disturbances, just by them connecting with nature. Because it's that bad. Anyways, here's some other amazing things. We're talking about Eskimos. But there's so many things in this book that I've been highlighting and things. So he says, the author writes, my partner grew up in England on his grandfather's 10-acre homestead. The homestead was almost entirely self-sufficient, providing all the food and material needs for the family. My husband remembers how his grandfather would go outside, look at the sky, and check what the birds and squirrels were doing. Walk back inside and say, don't wash tomorrow, mother, it's going to rain. That's really amazing. He looked at what the birds and squirrels were doing, and he knew that it was going to rain tomorrow. Because the animals know that it's going to rain. They have some ability, and then he says, he would also collect lamb's wool that had been snagged on barbed wire fences. What does snagged mean? Just hung?
No, like
snagged. Okay. Okay. And examine it to check for oil. If it was very oily, he would predict the likelihood of a bad winter. That's amazing. If the sheep decide they had extra oil in their wool, it meant that they were expecting a bad winter, which meant that there was going to be a bad winter. If it was very oily, he would predict the likelihood of a bad winter. He could look at his fruit trees and determine by their growth pattern whether he should hammer a rusty nail into the trunk at a certain point to divert the sap so the trees would produce more fruit. He was not what we would call an educated man, but with this tacit knowledge, he could and did provide all the essentials of life for himself and his family.
we have, instead of the sheep's wool, we have the Puxatawny Phil.
Puxatawny Phil.
If he sees his shadow.
That's some nonsense. Most of he's been wrong 50% of the time, minimum, at least that's what they've said. But it's just, that's amazing. Because they were saying this, that so she began by saying this, in an era where people relied on their senses for information, they were attuned to the natural world in a deeper way. So you're tuned because of your senses and to the natural world in a deeper way. Why? Because the new technologies privilege the senses of vision and hearing to the detriment of other senses. And if you think about it, all your technology is all about just seeing and hearing. You can't, people's conception, there's so many funny things that are there in this, that so this is about children being completely, they're totally disconnected. At the same time, they actually disconnect us from direct experience. New technologies also give us the illusion that we are in a tangible way actually experiencing the things we observe. So with children, This generation of young people is among the first to grow up not necessarily thinking of simulation as second best. Because previously, if you wanted to simulate something, you would simulate it in your head by reading about it or something. But now people think simulation is top. And the experience, and why? Why? Check this out, right? When Turkle told the story to vice president of the Disney Corporation, he shared that the visitors to the animal kingdom in Orlando complained that the real animals that populate the park are not as realistic as the robotic creatures in other parts of Disney World. Likewise, children at a museum exhibit that featured 2 giant live turtles from the Galapagos Islands preferred robotic turtles because the real ones didn't do anything. And aliveness comes with inconvenience. Its water looks dirty, gross. As Turkle notes, for these children, aliveness seems to have no intrinsic value. An implication of this anecdotal evidence could be bluntly summarized as children losing the ability to distinguish between living and non-living things, or to give proper value judgments as to which is preferable. For example, a friend from Dubai, a totally urban saturated environment, told us that the first time her child saw a live dog, she exclaimed in wonder, "Wow, how many batteries does that thing take?" So this is what she said. We are beginning to lose our ability to experience the world directly. What we have come to mean by the term experience is impoverished. What we have of experience in daily life is impoverished as well. So, and here's another thing. Interestingly, there's so many things that I noted in this book that I've highlighted. Interestingly, research studies have demonstrated that the way we exercise our navigational skills produces physical changes in the structure of the brain. The harder people work at building cognitive maps of space, as opposed to, for example, relying on technology for navigation, for example, Google Maps, the stronger their underlying memory circuits become. Several studies have demonstrated that exercising navigational skills increases gray matter in the hippocampus. Veronique Bobot, associate professor in the Department of Psychiatry at McGill University, notes that when people follow turn-by-turn instructions, where you hired her, turn-by-turn instructions in a robotic fashion, they don't stimulate their hippocampus. And as a result, they may leave themselves more susceptible to memory loss. Bobot is concerned that should the hippocampus begin to atrophy from a lack of use of navigation, the result could be a general loss of memory and a growing risk of dementia. Anyways, again, some of this is probably speculation, but the thing is, so and they obviously have exaggerations because they don't know what they're talking about either. But we can safely say that the more we're doing stuff that how people did before, the more it's probably better for us. That much we could probably say. And anyways, there's so much more that I can read. Here, let's leave it with one last one. Of course, in this regard, we also have to take into account that our actions are disrupting the natural cycles of life. As one example, my stepson lives close to Lake Ontario in Canada. As there are in other parts of southern Ontario, the Canada geese have lost the instinct to fly south in winter because people feed them and they are safe from hunters. In order to avoid thousands of geese dying in winter, city employees now have to break the ice on Lake Ontario so that the geese can get water. In an attempt to control the number of geese, they've begun to spray mineral oil on some of the eggs, which suffocates the embryos. Town crews also round up and relocate approximately 1,000 geese to other areas every June. It's true. And when I was in Sudbury, I was like, this is a crazy number of geese there. It's a lot of geese. So, anyways, yeah. So, thought I'd share some stuff there regarding how self-sufficiency also, such a related subject matter.
And the other one that I'm reading through also, it's mentioning the point that actually this is quite a big experiment, all of this technology being introduced, and I think pretty much all the devotees here fall into that generation where we are pretty much the first ones to grow up with this technology, and it and it
All of
really,
you and Kalki?
yeah, 95 onwards.
When did you have your first cell phone?
Yeah, I mean, it's teen years. Yeah.
18. 18's not too bad.
Yeah, teen years, but it makes the point that's the general years where
That's the same as me.
forming your habits are forming and how your ability to think and all that. So it's been quite a detrimental thing in society that it's never been tested, and you're just pushing it on to, all of these young children, allowing them to get on pornography by clicking a button saying, yeah, I'm 18, and giving them all of these things that they don't need at all. So it's interesting, even technologies like ChatGPT and all that coming out, the impact that they'll have on people's minds. Because at least before, we had to use some ability to be able to do research in order to find what we needed to find and do all of that. Now that's not even there. Now you just say it and it comes up. So you don't have to process anything. You don't have to know anything. You don't have to remember anything. And I was thinking about this because I'm starting to take notes on paper now. And sometimes you leave the paper in your room, and because you're so used to being able to just, okay, oh yeah, what did I write? Oh yeah, it was that. You actually have to learn to remember what you read and what you noted down instead of just whipping out your phone notes. If you have your computer here and your phone's down there, it's fine. The notes are connected to your computer.
Yeah.
So you can bring it up. So there's no real need for your mind to even, or your memory to remember. It's like, I'll bring it up. I don't need to learn verses. I can just bring it up on my phone. So all of these
here
things.
they say that researchers at Princeton University and University of California have shown that students who handwrite lecture notes score significantly higher than those who take notes with a laptop. And they also say here that Mark Bowerlin, professor of English at Emory University, notes an alarming decline in general knowledge among the young. In recent tests, 63% could not identify Iraq on a map. 52% of high school students chose Germany, Japan, or Italy over the Soviet Union as a U.S. ally in World War II. Only 19% of college seniors scored a grade of C or higher on a survey measuring factual historical knowledge. When American 15-year-olds were tested against 41 other countries in math and science, 26 other countries scored significantly higher than the US. And while only 22% of college seniors recognized a line from the Gettysburg Address, I don't know, that's something American history, 98% of them identified Snoop Doggy Dogg.
I know that one. Yeah, I know. Come on. But oh yeah, the level of impact, that social media is having on people is ridiculous, and I think it's almost immeasurable because it really is killing our ability to, like you were saying, discern reality and what is not reality, So this is quite a big change going into this sort of situation in where we're introducing more natural way of living. That means we also have to get off technology, and we have to show, hey, we're living a healthier, better lifestyle. Just like we went and saw these, Bruderhofs, they look quite healthy and happy and going on. They have phones, but they don't use internet. These young guys from what are they? The Mormons. They're literally their phones. They can only access one website on their phone. That's it. Nothing else. No apps. You can't touch anything. It's all locked. They have their own, the website is their. Huh? JW what?
Is it JW?
I don't know what that is.
Never mind, it's Jehovah's.
Jehovah's, yeah. The Mormons, they can only go onto their own website, and they're pretty happy with it. You know, it's and they look like they're doing pretty well. So they don't have mental health problems and such and such. The book that I'm reading called The Anxious Generation, and so introduces so many mental issues with this technology actually.
They already found that ChatGPT makes people dumber. They already did studies.
Sure.
Got a new Dumb and Dumber over here.
What they're saying about not using, not having to use your memory so much, being linked with maybe getting dementia. I don't think that's too. I mean, definitely a speculation, or I don't know if they have any research to back that, but it doesn't sound too
There's
far
speculation. You can't prove it. It's too soon to prove it. So they don't
Too
have the
soon to prove
data.
it. Yeah.
So that's what they're
Yeah.
saying. Although, yeah, some devotees, some people say dementia is also linked to a lack of eating good dairy products. There might be multiple reasons that causes it.
Yeah. Anyways, I was just saying it's like not too far off. We see analogously an example of if you don't use a particular muscle in your body, if you're never using that muscle, it's going to become really small and weak and almost non-existent. And it's like really hard to like I even identify that muscle at some point and then like bring it back to regular size and everything. So I mean that's like a general trend with the body. If you don't use something, it won't you're
Use it,
yeah, basically. Your body won't like
atrophy.
okay, I don't have time to think now. But anyways. Yeah, okay, I guess.
One thing is, even to start, again, the problem is, we see that, like this is what he's talking about, this grandfather, it's kind of crazy, the stuff that, check the oil that comes from the wool and this and that, and predict the winter, or no, look at the squirrels and the birds and decide whether it's going to rain tomorrow or not. It's just amazing in England because it keeps raining there all the time. But England.
Oh yeah.
And but still, the challenge is we've lost that, and the transition requires an extraordinary amount of patience and tolerance, and it's tough because we're not used to it. Just like, okay, for instance, okay, we want to navigate without Google Maps. All right, that means you're going to make mistakes. You're going to run into traffic jams. You can have the MacBook. It's not going to predict a jam, and the other thing is you will make mistakes because you're going to miss a turn or something like that. But that means you're. I mean, it requires a certain level of not being so rajasic. We're used to this life where we think, we plan, we leave at this time, we arrive at this time, la 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 la. But we don't give ourselves more time. We are in a fast-paced life, and we become very impatient. And in fact, it's hard for us to even plan in this way because we only know fast-paced planning. We don't know anything else. So we don't know how much to give time, and we can't make plans. Like if I need to schedule something, I don't know how to schedule it. And then, so we try this, and then most of the time you just give up and go back to the technology because that's what. So it's so hardwired, but the honest truth is that again, you wouldn't have to rely on maps if you don't travel too much. So that's one solution. But if you got a bull, if you got an ox cart, then there's only 10 miles that ox is going to be able to go in a day, and so all you need to do is figure out what roads are within 10 miles of your neighborhood, and that's not very difficult to find out. And even if you make a mistake, it's not a big deal, So this is where the problem is that it's we have to go natural, but then we're not used to it. Like we're used to like checking the weather, and it helps us in so many ways. But in order for us to develop skills, we have to stop checking the weather, which means there's going to be an interim period of quite some suffering. And that's what's sort of hard to accept. And that's kind of where a lot of people just basically just give up, because that's the difficult part.
Another thing about like convenience and it making us weak is in order to develop as a person, in order to get skills practically, you need to make mistakes. Otherwise, you're not going to learn anything, because where you make mistakes, it exposes a weakness that you need to work on. And it's not so convenient. Like, for instance, if you're always used to using a GPS, and so you try without the GPS, you'll make wrong turns, you'll get lost maybe, but by doing that, you'll get the samskara by which
You'll start noting things, because nowadays with GPS, you just don't even note landmarks. You don't care about anything. You're just looking at the map and you're looking at the road and you're checking cars, and that's it. You don't look, oh, there's this landmark, there's this place, there's this. Yeah. And what happens is, it is true, it's sort of unnatural, because even if you just walked and you observe a lot more than that, and so your observational capacity sort of reduces. And what's more is that now with all these things, we're also multitasking, either having phone calls or like listening to something, and it does reduce an observational experience, and these things probably have effects on our brain. And one other thing about accepting these kind of austerities or changing is also to recognize that if we probably try to change a lot of things, it might feel very overwhelming. Like, for instance, if we wanted to grow without looking at the weather and depending on those kind of things, then we might need to be prepared to go to the grocery store to buy stuff when this failed, because you're in the process of learning. So you can't have, both. But then otherwise, another way is, okay, we'll look at the weather, but we'll try to grow everything that will help us, like, in that way. So it's a choice. It's you can't say one is better than the other, but maybe you do one thing, and then you do another thing after you've become better at one thing. Because sometimes if you try to do everything all at once, then it becomes very overwhelming, because the whole lifestyle is completely different to what we're used to living.
Yeah, I had a friend. We would, get together and do things all the time. And he would come to my house, like the route between his house and my house, he would drive, 100 times a year, something like all the time he was driving, 10-minute drive in Atlanta. Very like easy, clear. And after maybe like taking this route like hundreds of times maybe, he couldn't do it without the GPS. Like one time his phone was dead, and I was like, just do it without the GPS. You've drove this way so many times. And
Lost.
He just like, he doesn't know where he is, even though he's like driven this way so many times. And that's like really when it hit me hard, and that influenced me not to use my GPS when I don't have to. But yeah, sorry? Yeah, he's gonna get dementia sooner. I was gonna say something. It's lost.
Okay, so we can continue reading.
One question. How to judge, Prabhu, when to use technology versus when not to use it?
Tough one. It's a tough one, Because there's personal pressure, there's social pressure. So there's two kinds of pressure. There's personal pressure from ourselves also, because we don't want to, in some ways it feels like, come on, what the hell am I doing? I'd much rather just, save time here and just go and read and chant or something like that. So we also don't want, that's what I'm saying, we're used to doing a lot more than what people generally did in traditional life. You're doing so many things in one shot. This is another reason why we're getting more diseases, feel more stress and anxiety. We also tend to age faster than other times. Because it's one of the things that's stated in this book, when that whole thing about aliveness came, is that it's that slow-paced life that we're not used to. Today young people who spend almost all their leisure time on screens are even less likely to find it stimulating or pleasurable to spend time outside in the natural world. A typical example, one fourth grader told, I like to play indoors better because that's where all the electrical outlets are. Playing or exploring in nature seemed to them, quote, unproductive, off limits, alien, cute, dangerous, televised. An expansive, slow-moving nature just can't hold a candle to the whiz-bang of a video or a video game. So, having been raised on Discovery Channel type nature programs that compress hundreds of hours of footage into a half hour of exciting video, they expect to see a deer drinking, fish jumping, otters playing, and the bears growling all at once and with no effort on their part. So anyways, why I'm reading this is because I'm just trying to say how we're also hardwired to get a lot of things done than what we're used to. And also because we're so much in the mode of passion, when there's a little peaceful like that, we become disturbed. Like we feel that if things aren't fast-paced enough, I'm in Maya. Like I don't know how to keep my consciousness and just like sing the holy name, just chant, or I got to proactively be doing something. So actually, in my opinion, the personal pressure is equal or greater than the social pressure. Because when I see equal, there's at least 50% of the things in our life that we could cut out from technology without any effect on other people and our services. But we are not willing to do that. There's at least, I thought when I analyzed, there's at least 50% of things that I could do like that. Just related to myself, the way I conduct my life, just in that regard. Then there's the other 50% where there are other people involved, and then that becomes even harder to renounce. That one is really tough. But I think we could start from where we're at, with our own personal stuff in our own life. And just try to become more calm and peaceful by not being so wired up. That makes sense. I can't go into specifics because everybody's life is different. But just for instance, just avoiding pulling up that Instagram has no social pressure, nothing. Can help us a lot. There's a lot over there. The other 50%, or whatever that is, that involves a sort of a collective approach that everybody's willing to take. That's why we're trying to have these discussions, sort of like somehow, someday, kind of get to that kind of a point, because it will solve a lot of the problems that we also experience. I mean, this can also relate to one nice thing that they say in this book also, right in the very beginning of this book, she says that um, we also live at a time of tremendous social dislocation in which traditional moorings to family and community that hitherto provided meaning and stability have been severed. Thus, many of the problems we face today are social and ethical in nature. It's not just about, like, previously they didn't have so many social or ethical issues. It was more about survival, getting food, putting food on the table, knowing what, which we already have, but then we also have social and ethical issues. What's right, what's wrong, this sort of stuff. Big crisis.
Would those ethical issues arise due to too much, over endeavor, abundance of these things that provide for eating and sleeping, over endeavor?
Yeah, ethical. See, because we're used to too much sense gratification. Then it's just, we don't like any restriction. Just reading this, we kind of realize how much we don't like restrictions that are just normally it's not a restriction, it's how nature functions. We consider that a restriction. We think slow-paced nature is it's a restraint. We want everything to happen fast. And so, because of that, we break all the different boundaries and walls that are there, which several of them are just ethical. Several of them are ethical because you develop tolerance, you develop patience. And you don't have tolerance and patience, you have anger, you have so many other problems that come with it, rage. And then there's disrespect and all kinds of things that happen because of this. So we tend to lose. It's actually heavily destructing. It's crazy. They have a good cover for this. One side is the regular brain, the other they put a digital, thing. It's a very good cover. Huh? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
One thing, I think maybe a few days ago, Jitagrish Prabhu asked me to clean the soot on the dishes in the kitchen, the black spots. So we used ash. There was some ash lying around, and it removed it in one go. If we use ash and we rub
really?
it goes away immediately. We use infinite amount of soap.
Chemicals and all this.
It doesn't go. But with just ash, ash is it's lying around there.
We can make as much ash as we want.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just see.
Yeah.
That's good. I didn't know that. Okay, all right. We'll read from Gomata book now. Okay. Vasishtha Muni curses Vasus for stealing his cow. This is how Bhishma appeared. This is from Mahabharata, I'm sure. Yeah. Surabhi, the daughter of Daksha, the mother of all cows, was married to Kashyapa Muni. Surabhi and Kashyapa, to benefit the whole world, brought forth a daughter in the form of a cow called Nandini. Sage Vasishtha, the son of Varuna, obtained Nandini to perform Homa rites. Nandini, dwelling in that hermitage, roamed fearlessly in those sacred and delightful woods. Once long ago, the celestial Vasus came to earth near Vasishtha Muni's hermitage, accompanied by their wives to take pleasure in the greenery. They were 8 brothers who normally lived in the heaven. One of the wives of Dew, one of the brothers, saw Nandini, the cow of plenty. She became desirous of possessing it. She said to her husband, Dew, "My lord, I wish to obtain this cow for my friend Jitavati, the daughter of the sage Ushinara. By drinking the milk from this regularly, she will be freed from disease and decrepitude. Kindly get this cow for me." Vasu was well aware that the cow belonged to sage Vasishtha, so he tried persuading his wife to forget about it, as the sage would not part with the cow at any cost. However, unable to bear the nagging of his wife, he ultimately decided to carry away the cow by force. Assisted by his brothers, he took the cow away. Sage Vashishta, upon knowing that Nandini was missing and had not returned, set out to search for her. He could not find her anywhere. He at once used his yogic powers and divined all that had happened with Nandini. He then cursed the Vasus, saying, "Since in their arrogance and pride the Vasus have committed the sin of stealing a Brahmana's property, may they be born on earth and suffer a mortal's fate." When the Vasus came to know of the sage's curse, they became sorrowful and begged the sage for mercy. At last Vasishta relented and said, "My curse cannot be completely revoked. The 7 of you who have merely obeyed your brother's orders shall not have to suffer the mortal fate for long. However, Dhyu, who is the real miscreant, will have to suffer this curse for a longer time and will not have any children. However, he shall be an illustrious and famous warrior." Later, a king known as Mahabhishak was cursed by Lord Brahma to be born as King Shantanu on earth. It came to be known that Ganga Devi will be Mahabhishak's wife on earth. Knowing this, the Vasus begged Ganga Devi to be their mother in their mortal incarnation. Ganga Devi agreed to the Vasus and made a pact that as soon as they were born, she would drown them, and thus their curse would be short-lived. Ganga Devi married Shantanu upon the condition that he would never raise any question about what she would do to the children born from them. Shantanu agreed to this condition as he was infatuated by the beauty of Ganga Devi. As soon as a son was born, Ganga Devi used to drown them in water. Although Shantanu had agreed for total silence, these incidents were too overwhelming for him, especially when he was wanting a right heir for his throne. When the 8th child was born, Shantanu could not but resist to raise an objection with Ganga Devi. As the condition was broken, Ganga Devi handed over the 8th child to Shantanu and disappeared. This 8th child was Dhyu, who became to be known as the most illustrious personality of the Kuru dynasty, known as Bhishma. This story illustrates that one should be very careful and exercise conscience in dealing with cows and brahmanas. It is said that even in one's mind, one should not commit an offense against cows. Manasa goshu na druhyed go vrittir go anukampakaha. One should follow the behavior of the cows, not accumulate and be greedy. One should show compassion to the cows and provide them all protection. Okay. I didn't ask if there were any comments or questions from the mothers. No. Okay. Can I read the next story? Or anything else from here? No. All right. 18. Vishwamitra and sage Vashishta. This is a famous one that we've read in Ramayana. Who's read Ramayana here? 1, 2, 3, 4. Everybody? You haven't read? Oh. If you haven't read, please read. Rishi would read it to you. Okay. Anyways, you should read it. Okay, Vasishta, the son of Varuna, it's interesting because this is a very important story in the Ramayana, and it all happened because of one cow. Vasishta, the son of Varuna, had his hermitage on Mount Meru. This spot was very beautiful and secluded. In the previous story, we saw that Nandini, the wish-fulfilling cow, was the cynosure of all eyes. A similar incident occurred once again. There was a king by the name Kaushika, who was the son of Ghadiraj. King Kaushika's army was passing through the forest on an expedition. The king and his men were both tired and hungry by this time. By providence, Kaushika's army came near the hermitage of the great sage Vashishta. Considering them as Atithi, guests who came without prior information are considered as God sent, and the culture is to treat them as good as God. A famous prayer in the Vedas instructs this, Atithi Devo Bhava. The sage welcomed the king and arranged for their refreshments. The king was very surprised that a complete feast had been laid out for his army. There was very wonderful dishes of every description, drinks of different varieties. Such a wonderful reception and sumptuous feast was possible with the help of the wish-fulfilling cow, Nandini. In fact, there was nothing that could not be provided by Nandini. Being delighted with the reception of Vasishta Muni, King Kaushika noticed that although the sage was living in the forest with no visible means of support, it was due to Nandini that he could cater to them. The king again and again looked at Nandini, who was very adorable in its appearance. He started to notice the auspicious signs and the shape of the body of Nandini as follows. Sadunnatam suparshvorum prithupanchasamavritam vritam mandu kanetram swakaram pino ghosamaninditam suvaladhim Shankukarnam Charushringi Manoramam. Kaushika noticed 6 elevated parts of Nandini, beautiful side parts, thighs, 5 large parts, beautiful eyes like that of a frog's, fat milk bag, beautiful long tail, conch-shaped ears, beautiful horns, broad and strong head, and beautiful overall structure of the body of Nandini. I didn't know that. The frog's eyes are beautiful. It is explained by experts of Lakshana Shastra that Shirogriva Shaktinicha Shashna Pucha Matastana Shubhan Yetani Dhenu Namayetani Prachakshate. The 5 elevated parts to be observed to know the quality of the breed of the cow are the neck, head, pelvic region, dew flap, the flap below the neck, tail, and milk bag. Similarly, 5 broad and strong parts to be observed are forehead, 2 ears, and 2 eyes. Expert place the glories of the cows having these symptoms. One will note that Indian breeds, Desi breeds, they tend to have all of these qualities. So they tend to be higher quality. Doesn't mean that the Western breeds aren't cows. It's just species, just like that. Just like in human beings, there's description, lakshanas of an auspicious person. Yeah? So the more it's there, the more elevated that birth is. And the more elevated the cow, the better the quality of the milk and the better everything that comes from them. After noticing all these wonderful auspicious signs fully present in Nandini, Kaushika desired to have that wish-fulfilling cow in his own cowshed. Kaushika said, "O sage, please take 10,000 cows in exchange of Nandini, whom I desire to have, or else take the whole of my kingdom in her exchange. In this way you can be very happily situated." Sage Vashishta said, "O Kaushika, Nandini helps me in serving the demigods, the guests, and for offering oblations to the forefathers and for yagyas. Therefore, even with the exchange of your whole kingdom, I shall not part with her." Kaushika grew furious over this refusal by the sage and ordered the soldiers to drag the cow to his palace by force. However, Nandini, being very quick and agile, could not be caught by Kaushika and his army. Nandini escaped from their hands and ran helter-skelter. Soon, enraged Kaushika started beating Nandini. Nandini started shouting, "Amba, Amba," in pain and came running and stood before sage Vashishta. Being helpless, Vashishta exclaimed to Nandini to protect herself. Nandini, receiving this instruction, produced a vast army from her own body. The Pallavas emerged from her tail, and from her udders came forth the Dravidas and the Sakas. Yavanas and Kambojas emerged from the womb, and from her dung emerged Savaras. From her urine came Kanhis, and her mouth gave rise to the Poundras and Kiratas. This vast army that appeared from the body of Nandini attacked Kaushika's army. However, as Nandini was interested only in the exit of Kaushika, the soldiers did not kill anyone in Kaushika's army. As a result, Kaushika's army was driven away for about 27 miles from Vasishta's hermitage. Humiliated and infuriated, King Kaushika decided that the strength of a Kshatriya is actually nothing, but the strength of a great mystic is the actual strength. Dig balam Kshatriya balam, Brahma tejo balam balam. Kaushika then gave up his kingdom and retired to his forest to perform severe austerities with the passion to compete with sage Vashishta. Later, Kaushika came to be known as the famous sage Vishwamitra. Thus ends the story of Vashishta's service to Mother Cow and King Kaushika's defeat. Although people are ordained to do cow protection, it is indeed the cows that protect us in return. Gavo rakshanti rakshitaha. That's interesting. Just like it says dharmo rakshati rakshitaha, you have gavo rakshanti rakshitaha. There are many instances where cows have protected the owners from dangers. Cows can even warn us much before of any natural calamity. By providing cow dung, urine, ox power, and milk products, the cows become the base of the economy of the society. Without cows in this generation, a generation of weak, slender, less intelligent, dull, abnormally shaped people are produced. And this is actually interesting. He's quoting a Sanskrit verse for this. Nacha gavam yadi payaf prithivitaleshmin nirvi yashakti rahitopi krishaha karupam. So that if without the cow and the milk from the cow, it says you get all kinds of weird human beings. I mean, now what occurs, right? So many people can't even take milk, even if it's available. The bodies have become weak to such degree. Here's all our shastras saying that we should take dairy products. The body has become so much that the dairy product itself is now poisonous for us. So, yeah. Any last comments, questions?
Since you just said this, I saw something today saying that if the cow is eating properly, like grass and nice things, then the milk doesn't have to be like pasteurized in order for humans. Like the bacteria in it isn't like as bad as what we get in the store now. Is that? Do you know anything?
I don't know
that?
anything about
Okay.
that. You can drink raw milk when it comes straight from the udder. That much I know.
At least from what I read from Prabhupada, he was saying that milk should be boiled, like foam up 3 times. That's like a form of pasteurization. Yeah.
Well, boiling milk is almost, I've seen it almost always done in Vedic culture, and the only exception is when the milk is hot, directly out of the udder. That is considered to be extremely medicinal. There's something about it when it comes right out of the udder. Its properties are slightly different. When it cools down, they say it becomes, at least Vedic culture, they say that it's indigestible. You have to boil it for it to be consumed.
It seems like that's what Sukadeva Goswami was doing. When the cow was milked, then it seems like he would take it and then
Right
go.
away.
Because it's described that he would only stay there as long as it took to milk
As it took to milk a cow.
and then go. And then obviously he was super renounced.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So taking the milk right away. It's said to cure a lot of things when you take the milk right away.
I noticed that the milk that we get here, for example, in the gallons, it doesn't boil over so easily, Prabhu. But I remember in my childhood, my mother would boil it. It would come, boom, 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 boom. No
It
problem.
will rise faster
Yeah.
and boil faster.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I think are you saying both? Or
No,
which
no.
ones?
I was referring to the store-bought milk, the whole milk that we get with the red cap.
No, it's not store-bought.
There's also
The big gallon one that's got only, this doesn't have much of...
both have red caps. Yeah.
If it's got a cow on that one, that's store-bought. If it doesn't have a cow, then
Yeah. I think it's store-bought. It was on a regular day. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
regular day means
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo patitanam pavanebhyo.
Did they boil in a karai, Iman? Instead of a pot?
No pot.
I was in a village, it's a karai.
Regular pot.
But could I do this?
You have karai, did they? It gets, milk gets okay, yeah, and it gets stuck on the bottom. You just scrape that off.
That's first class. Yeah.